What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Player Profiler today for Wednesday, May 22nd. I'm Grindberg, Senior Analyst for the Player Profiler News Desk, and I'm here every Wednesday bringing you the news for Player Profiler today. Let's get this story going with our top story. 5 teams that could be breaking down the biggest backfield makeovers this season has happened in this offseason. So the 5 biggest backfield makeovers, I'm going to be covering them. There could be plenty more that I probably missed, but I'm going to go over my favorite excited backfields that I'm excited about headed into the 2024 season. And number 5 is the Baltimore Ravens. I'm excited about their new addition, Derrick Henry. When the Baltimore Ravens signed Derrick Henry to a 2-year deal worth $16 million, I was excited. It meant that Henry still has something left in the tank, and some players are just built differently. And we all know that Derrick Henry he's a tank. Henry has and still remains one of those guys. Last year, at the age of 29, he ranked first in rushing attempts and second in rushing yards, while showing little drop off in efficiency. He did concede touches to Tajay Spears, but that was more of a, coaching than talent than anything. He goes to the Ravens, who don't have much else behind Derrick Henry other than Keaton Mitchell, another complimentary back, but not as talented as someone like Tajay Spears. So I'm not too worried about Keaton Mitchell cutting into Derrick Henry's workload. He will cross the dreaded age of 30. I know that is a high age, but it's tough to project a drop off of Derrick Henry when you think of how much he's been successful in the league. And, he hasn't shown any signs of dropping off really just yet, even if he does, relinquish some of that workload. The good thing about his new landing spot is the Ravens ranked first, third, 7, and first in total rush attempts in the last 6 seasons. And the Ravens also finished second, first, third, and second in rushing yards over the last 6 seasons. So they like to run the ball. And the cherry on top of all of that, they ranked second, third, 9th, 20th, and 4th in rushing touchdowns as well. The Ravens have a top 3 rushing yards in all 6 seasons, in the last 6 seasons. So this is a really great landing spot for Derrick Henry, in my opinion. I'm expecting a healthy Derrick Henry to push 17 touchdowns in 2024. That will catapult him into probably top 10 category here in 2024. Despite his age, he is still, getting up there, but he still has a lot of upside in this offense. I think the Ravens are going to be in a lot of situations where they're going to be in the red zone quite a bit. They don't usually rush Lamar Jackson a whole lot in the red zone. I think he only had 5 touchdowns last year. So Derrick Henry is poised to have a really good season, a lot of touchdown upside, and he is the one guy that I'm really excited, and a backfield that I'm excited to see them come out. They were AFC championship finalists this year, and they were a player or two off of representing the AFC in the Super Bowl, and you never know what could have happened there if they would have made it. So I think they were, one piece away from potentially getting to that Super Bowl. And we all know that I'm a Chiefs fan. So, that's me saying that now the Chiefs are in tight here. Derrick Henry brings that really hard mouth rushing aspect. They're going to be able to control the clock in a lot of these games now, taking some pressure off of Lamar Jackson. So I really, really like this move for the Ravens and Derrick Henry in general. Now, the other backfield, my number 4 backfield that I'm really excited about is the Eagles. And the Giants kind of won, 6 games since drafting Barkley and never finished higher than 15th in points per game over that stretch. 3 times over those 6 seasons, the Giants were 30th or worst in scoring. Now Barkley gets a really good landing spot where he is going to have the opportunity to score a lot of touchdowns in an offense that is high powered. We all know that the Eagles are a high powered offense. The Eagles finished 12th, 3rd, and 8th in scoring over the last 3 seasons with Jalen Hurts as their quarterback. Moving, onto the Eagles, however, the Barkley will give them new life, a component that they haven't really seen in years in that position. Yes, DeAndre Swift was a good fill-in last year. Miles Sanders, we all know where he's at in his career now, but now they bring in a perennial, guy that is known to take on a workload. The Eagles already have A.J. Brown, Devante Smith. Outside of Hurst, they're in place to really be successful with Barkley there. Barkley has not played with an offensive teammate that has been elite since Odell Beckham, and that was just for one season. The Eagles are looking for improvement in their running game. It took a step back last season after a really dominant 2022 when we saw a guy like Miles Sanders be really, really successful in that offense, and that took a lot of fantasy managers and taking him in Carolina last year, and we know how that panned out. So just think of a guy with elite talent like Saquon Barkley has at the age of 27. I think he's got a lot of upside in this Eagles offense. The Eagles went from nearly leading the league in every backfield rushing area in 2022 to falling towards the middle of the pack last season. A few things jump out here. The first thing is that the offensive line is still doing its part. We all know how effective that tush push was last year for the Eagles, and I just think that they were just not as efficient running the ball because of where they were in their backfield, losing Miles Sanders, kind of a more of a hard-nosed, kind of up-the-middle runner as opposed to the DeAndre Swift type position. They've been missing a guy that can really, really push the ball in the middle of the field, and I think Saquon Barkley adds that element. Philadelphia was first in the NFL in run block win rate at 77% last year, so they have a very good offensive line that can run the ball well. The Giants were 31st in that category last year, and we saw what Barkley did with his opportunity, and I think he's not going to get as many touches in this Eagles offense, but I think they're going to be more high valued touches. Even with the retirement of Jason Kelce, this is a massive step up in talent for Barkley in that offensive line. Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell, these have been backs that have been consistent generating yards after contact, and I think that Barkley is just going to really do well in that offense. Barkley has not been over 3 yards per contact since his first 2 seasons, but I just really think with this new offensive line, he's poised to be a guy that is going to be in position to do really well in 2024 in this new Eagles offense. He's going to have a lot of upside in the red zone. I think they're not going to run in Jalen Hurts as much in the red zone, rushing the ball up the middle. So I just think that Barkley is going to be that guy. They did bring in Dylan Lobb in the draft, which I think is a very good component there that they're going to add in that situation in the third down pass catching back role, but he's only going to be effective in between the 20s. We all know that Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley are going to be the guys that are going to be leading the pack there. So interesting moves there. And another team that I'm really excited about seeing their new backfield, because it has changed a lot, and that is the Green Bay Packers. They bring in Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd, and out on the fritz is now Aaron Jones. With Jones on his way out and A.J. Dillon just a mere backup, the path is clear for, I think, Josh Jacobs to take another featured role in this offense, in this young offense, mind you, that's just getting going. We all know that these Green Bay Packers have a lot of young wide receivers. They're all on their rookie contracts, and I just think this is a very big smash play for these running backs. Yes, Marshawn Lloyd was drafted by the Packers, and as you know, I'm very high on Marshawn Lloyd, and I really like his future as a Green Bay Packer, but I just don't see it being coming to fruition this early in his career. I think maybe halfway through the season, he might get some play, but they're still going to use A.J. Dillon a little bit next year. As much as we want Marshawn Lloyd to excel, I just think that Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon will be kind of the 1-2 punch until Marshawn Lloyd can, carve out himself a role. He's a good pass blocking back, and he's got some good upside in the passing game. So we will see what happens there with Marshawn Lloyd, but I'm looking at Josh Jacobs as a guy that has the potential here to have some positive regression and play a little bit closer to his 2022 season. I'm not saying he's going to repeat that by all means, but I think he's going to be a little bit closer to that range than he was in 2023. I think is going to be more of a medium consistency there. Josh Jacobs, if he has that opportunity, and I think he's going to get it in Green Bay. He led the NFL in rushing yards just 2 seasons ago. So 1,700 yards rushing, 2,000 yards from scrimmage, and he was named first All-Pro. And that surprised many in that season, and he was a league winner in fantasy football. He did miss 4 games last year, and I think the franchise tag had something to do with that. A guy like Josh Jacobs didn't miss a whole lot of time before, he was playing on that tag. And last year, I think he was just trying to preserve himself for his new contract, that he got a decent contract with the Packers. So I think that that's going to really translate into some good playing time in a good young offense that is going to be high powered. And I think that Josh Jacobs is going to have a lot of opportunity in the red zone, in the first and second down role, and be a threat, especially earlier on in the season. So Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd, I love this transition there that the Green Bay Packers made with the offseason changes. And I just think that they're a very good offense on the upswing. And I just really like what I see from Jordan Love. And I think he is poised to have a really, really good 2024 season. So now, before we get into the rest of these last 2 teams that I'm going to be talking about their backfields, before we get into the other news, we just got to get a quick message from the Podfather and what's going on with us and Underdog. So let's hear from the Podfather himself.
This episode is made possible by Underdog Fantasy, and Underdog Fantasy is the leader in best ball. When you go to join an Underdog Fantasy best ball draft, it fills very quickly. Especially now, it's Best Ball Mania season, baby. Best Ball Mania 5. I can't believe they're at Best Ball Mania 5 already. $15 million in prizes. They're giving out $15 million with $1.5 million to first. Playing in best ball leagues makes you better. It helps train you on player value and strategy. And Underdog offers a lot more than just best ball contests. They offer pick'ems. My new favorite, the golf pick'ems. But they have the NBA pick'ems, baseball pick'ems going on throughout the offseason. Hit the pick'ems, back to best ball, hit the pick'ems. So use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. So they've increased the maximum deposit bonus. It was $100. Now it's up to $125. When you get the Underdog app, use promo code Underworld and go draft your ass off.
Let's go, Podfather. Absolutely. Let's draft our asses off. And, the best ball is just taken off this time of year, and it is what's keeping this fantasy football industry going. And it's been just such a good addition to our off season. And, Underdog is really leading the force here. So make sure that you, subscribe and get on Underdog with the Underworld promo code. So be sure to follow in. So we've covered my 5, 4, and 3 picks here. And now I got a couple of backfields that I'm really excited about seeing the change and what's going to happen in those backfields. And my number 2 backfield that is going to be really, really interesting to see how it shakes out, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, we know Austin Eckler is no longer a Charger. He's with the Commanders in a new role there. We saw what they did prior to the draft, and many thought that, the Chargers were going to bring in, a higher value, earlier pick with their draft capital, but that didn't end up panning out after they picked up Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins in free agency, and I think that kind of squashed where they were headed. But they picked a guy that I'm really, really high on, and that's Kamani Vidal, and he's a guy that could potentially be carving himself out a big role in 2024 behind Gus Edwards. I'm not too sold on J.K. Dobbins being able to bounce back from both those knee injuries and become a force. I think that's more of a depth play. So look at here. Jim Harbaugh likes his running backs. He likes a defensive style game. We know that from back in his days with the 49ers. We know that has been his game plan with the Wolverines last year when they won the national championship. control the clock, control the game on defense. And I just think that that's going to be their MO, moving forward. And I really like the situation here. Gus Edwards is a guy that, he's going to get the early down role, potentially these red zone looks. But a guy like Kamani Vidal is kind of a sleeper in these leagues now. And if somebody that, if you don't have your eye on yet, is somebody that I'm telling you right now, you should be, the Chargers are getting a gem here by adding the all-time great from Troy University. He was a 3-year starter at the school. Vidal finished his Troy career setting the all-time single season and single game rushing records. He was a workhorse over his time there at the university, adding 34 touchdowns over his 4 years. He put up quite the final season there. He topped 100 yards 7 times and rushed for over 200 plus yards 3 times in 2023. In addition, adding 14 touchdowns. True workhorse form. He isn't the biggest guy, only standing at 5'8", but he hits that 200-pound threshold. He sits at 213 pounds, so he isn't the biggest back, but he forced 94 missed tackles in 2023, and I cannot say enough about his pass blocking. He's been impressive, and his numbers go deeper than just his stat line. He's been a true workhorse back. Now he enters one of the best situations you can ask for. Some expected the Chargers to pick up an earlier back in the draft, like I said earlier, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins fizzled that flame. We can expect Gus Edwards to be the early down back, but J.K. Dobbins, I don't think he's going to carve himself out a role. This gives Kamani Vidal, he has such a chance to carve out a substantial role for the Chargers immediately. He was highly touted headed into this draft. He wasn't cracking a lot of guys' top, 10 in their rankings, but after this draft, he's floating into the top, 10 in the running back class, and I see him even skyrocketing even more with some of his upside, right? So we're looking at a guy that is going to have a lot of upside headed into this season, and he can actually, if all things go into his favor, land the starting role in the Chargers offense. And I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibilities here for Kamani Vidal with the way he's been able to carve out a workhorse role. And I think that that Harbaugh's been circled him on his, with bringing in Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. He knew he had a guy in that later round that he could pick that could come in and make an impact. And Kamani Vidal is going to be that guy. I'm sold on him, and I think he's going to have a big role in 2024 for the Chargers and become the workhorse back in 2025 for the team. So I think his dynasty stock is going to skyrocket. That's just my take. So take it for what you will, folks. And now my number one landing spot or backfield that I'm excited to see, and that is the Carolina Panthers' new backfield. They have Jonathan Brooks coming in as a rookie. They have Chuba Hubbard, who had a really good end of season in 2023. And they got, Miles Sanders, who I think he's on his way out at this stage of his career. But what they have here is they've shown and they've given us an indicator that, Jonathan Brooks is going to be the guy. And I'm not necessarily thinking they needed to make that pick for him, but I think that adds a really big element to their run game. Jonathan Brooks is a guy that, with landing spot and all that kind of stuff in consideration, he was one of the people that, people had their circled as the guy that it was the number one running back in this class. And I think this landing spot solidifies that. Yes, we have to worry about, his ACL. He's coming off a major knee injury. He tore his ACL. Early reports indicate that Brooks will be ready for training camp. So it's unclear if he'll be able to participate in the contact drills early on. But if he's fully healthy, he will, be a very, very intriguing person in 2024. His workload, depending on how it goes, I think he's going to be eased into this offense. I think they still have some depth there with Chuba Hubbard. So I envision that Jonathan Brooks is going to be eased in, but I think as soon as his knee is ready to rock, he is going to be lights out for this club. He ran for 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns in just 11 games last year, averaging 6.1 yards per carry. He had 25 receptions for 286 yards and 1 touchdown. So he's a threat in the passing game too. He's got good size, sitting at 6 foot, 216 pounds. He's quick-footed. He's slippery. He's just a guy that, people have their eye set on. And I think Jonathan Brooks is coming into one of the best situations in football. We know what Canales did with Rachaad White last year. And I think that Jonathan Brooks is in a way better situation than Rachaad White was. And he's a much better talent. So I'm looking at Jonathan Brooks to be a guy that could be a league-winning guy in 2024 in fantasy lineups down the stretch. So if you can not overpay for him, Jonathan Brooks is a situation that I really like to see. And I think Chuba Hubbard is going to come in and start the year as the starter because they're going to ease Brooks in. But by game 4 or 5, Jonathan Brooks should be able to take over that backfield and really, really cement himself as a clear workhorse running back 1 in the NFL. And those guys are few and far between. So, ACL injury, never easy to come back from, but we've seen what a guy like Breece Hall did last year. And I think that Jonathan Brooks, as young as he is, and with the talent that he has the opportunity to really succeed in 2024. So that is the recap of the 5, most intriguing backfields, in my opinion, headed into 2024. Now let's, hit up some of this other news, because there's some news that actually happened this week, and a couple big names in retirement, a couple guys, sitting out OTAs, and these are warranted news that we need to talk about. So let's get into some other headlines. Wide receiver Devante Parker announces his retirement 2 months after signing with the Eagles. Parker, a 9-season NFL veteran who was, the 2015 NFL Draft first-round pick of the Miami Dolphins. Parker signed with the Eagles in March and was decided to end his career following 7 seasons with the Dolphins and his last 2 with the New England Patriots. He played almost a decade in the league, finished his NFL tenure with 400 catches, 5,600 yards, and 27 touchdowns, and he played 119 games. 31 years old, he had his best season in 2019, where he recorded 72 catches for 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. I remember that season vividly. He was a league winner. Salute to Devante Parker. He spent the last 2 seasons in the Patriots offense, though he signed a 3-year, $35 million deal last June. He went on to record 33 catches for 394 yards in just 13 games, and he was later released and then signed with the Dolphins, with the Eagles, and now he is officially retired. And Devante Parker, we salute you. Hope you have a great retirement. You were a staple for those Miami Dolphins. And we have another retirement here that is noteworthy, and that's David Johnson, former All-Pro running back from the Arizona Cardinals, announces retirement from professional football. Johnson career began in 2015 when he was drafted 86th overall by the Arizona Cardinals. He quickly made a name for himself, earning All-Pro and Pro Bowl honors in 2016. I remember that 2016 season where he was just a monster, rushing for 1,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, but he was a PPR machine, 80 receptions for another 900 yards. Just an incredible season and a league winner. He came in as a guy that just people weren't on and just turned the corner. An unfortunate wrist injury derailed his 2019 season, and he just wasn't the same after that. Johnson would eventually go on to play for the Texans and then the New Orleans Saints, and then now is officially retired from NFL football. So good on you, David Johnson. Thanks for the memories. you won a lot of championships for people single-handedly, and those are the type of players we're going to remember for years to come. And David Johnson is one of them I'll remember for a long, long time as far as fantasy football goes. All right, so we've got some situations happening in OTAs. Justin Jefferson was absent to start the voluntary OTAs as he negotiates his new contract. He's looking for a new contract that will likely, reset the market. Jefferson is a guy that is a generational talent. He's a star wideout, and he became eligible for a deal last year and is just taking the same approach, in my opinion, as he did last year. He's going to rejoin the team late in the summer, and the Vikings are in a position where they need to solidify him. In my opinion, at this stage, he's touted as a wide receiver one. We all know how his talent's going to be. Jefferson has kind of slid down, dynasty rankings as far as, becoming, the wide receiver 2 or 3, depending on how you value him, behind like CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase, just because of his situation now with a brand new quarterback, a rookie quarterback, and a lot's gonna change in the next little while for Justin Jefferson. But I think he could be a value if he's being drafted there, because he's going to be a target hog, no matter who's throwing him the ball, and we all know that, judging by the past with Jefferson. Now, Bijan Robinson continues to work through an ankle injury that's hindered his activity thus far this offseason. Robinson, who hasn't participated in OTAs, isn't expected to partake over the next 2 weeks. He's making strides, says Raheem Morris, but it's an important situation to kind of monitor. He's only 22 years old. He had a decent 2023 season. He's going to be one of Atlanta's premier playmakers in 2024 with this new coaching staff. And I'm just really excited to see. It's just unfortunate that we've have some issues with his ankle already. And we're going to have to keep that monitored. And another guy that we're, on the monitor list here is Kyron Williams, who hasn't participated in OTAs yet. Sean McVay's gone on record saying that he probably won't practice. And already a guy that was dealing with a lot of injuries in 2023. They were minor, mind you, but this is not a good sign for a guy that has been, under the microscope after a really, really great RB2 season in 2023, where, he was ultra efficient. He was second only behind Christian McCaffrey in a lot of metrics. So Kyron Williams is a guy that a lot of people are drafting pretty highly in 2024 in rookie drafts. In redrafts and dynasty startups, but kind of err your side of caution, because they brought in a guy like Blake Corum, who's got, better speed, better size. He just kind of is better in all these metrics that Kyron Williams does well at, and he's also got better draft capital. So it might not take long for a guy like Blake Corum to come in and prove himself and create a role in that offense. So another backfield that is one that we should be looking down on, and it's getting a makeover, whether we like it or not. So Trevor Lawrence is present during voluntary workouts, but with a potential contract extension, he is kind of not so involved in things. So we'll see what happens there with Trevor Lawrence. They're trying to put weapons around him, so I could just see a deal happening here in the next little while. But some interesting news coming out of New England camp, and their highly touted number 3 overall pick, Drake May, has been working out with the 3rd quarterback depth chart team. So right now he is sitting behind Jacoby Brissett and Bailey Zappi. And that's been, since the first day of the first phase of the OTAs. Of course, this is something that is going to be a work in progress. Obviously, I don't think Drake May is going to be a guy that the Patriots are going to have to worry about starting in 2024. But with a veteran guy like Jacoby Brissett and all these new wide receivers in play, maybe they're trying to get some situations there where they can get some offensive schemes going before they put Drake May in a situation where he's going to need to control that offense. So something to monitor, folks, as we head into this offseason and, seeing what these OTAs are bringing. So Yeah, I mean, we've covered quite a bit today on the show. We covered, some backfields that I'm really, really excited about. We covered some interesting situations in OTAs, a couple, you know, retirements that of guys that are pretty impactful in fantasy football throughout the year. So Devante Parker, David Johnson, salute you. Tomorrow on the show, we're gonna have Bradley Stalder bringing you the Thursday edition of the show. So stay tuned for him at 7 Eastern. I'm Grindberg, your host Wednesday for the show. I'm excited to be reporting the news to you every week on Player Profiler. You can always find me on X at FFCanuck99. So continue to follow us on Player Profiler _ NFL News on YouTube, on Twitter. Can find us on TikTok now, and also Instagram. So please find us there. Be sure to subscribe to all our channels, and be sure to continue to watch us weekly and daily here on Player Profiler today, because we are always keeping you up to date on the breaking news and adding a little flair to that daily. So thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike Lindberg for Player Profiler today, and hope you have a great night, and we'll see you again tomorrow when Bradley takes on the show. And we'll get the Podfather to end this show with a message.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.